Hi there, I'm Sarah White with OurDailyCraft.com, and today I'm going to teach you how to make the half double crochet stitch to make this little coaster. Now, in the previous video I showed how to do single crochet to make a little coaster like this, and there'll be a future video where I'm doing a double crochet version of the same thing, but for this one we're going to look at half double crochet, which is sort of halfway between the double crochet stitch and the single crochet stitch in terms of size and the techniques that are used. And to make this project, you're going to need some cotton yarn. This actual sample was done in Lily Sugar and Cream. The key is that you want a medium weight. You'll find this on your ball most of the time. A medium 4. I was going to use this Bernat Handicrafter for the sample that I'm going to demonstrate. It's almost exactly the same yarn. You can tell the color's just a little bit different. The colorway is jute on both of them, which I thought was funny. But any medium weight cotton yarn will work for this. And then you also need a crochet hook. This is a size 8H 5mm. And then for finishing, you'll also need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle, which is one with a big eye like this. I was pulling my yarn out of the center here, and it's actually going to work pretty well, so that's exciting. To start this, we're going to need to chain some stitches to work on our base. For the original one, I did a chain of 16, so we're going to start there and see how that goes. To start a chain, you need a slip stitch. So to do that, we'll just start with our tail end here and the ball end here. We're going to make a lowercase e out of the yarn, looping over itself. And then you take the yarn that's attached to the ball, pull it up through that hole, and then pull to make the loop. And then you can pull on the ends to make it a little smaller so that it'll fit on your hook. You don't want it super tight. You can see that this moves pretty well. But you don't want it so loose that it just flies off the hook either. So we're going to stop there. And then to make a chain, you hold the hook in your right hand, the needle, the yarn in your left hand, sorry. And you just take the yarn over the hook and pull it through that loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, a little more yarn there, 13, 14, 15, and 16. And so you can see that I tried to make my chains relatively even. They're not super loose, not super tight, and across the chain they are pretty much the same size. And that's what we want for this. So for a half double crochet, for a single crochet, so you ignore this first one, for a single crochet, you work into the first chain after the hook. For a half double, you work in the second. And so the way this goes is first we're going to take our yarn over the hook, and then we're going to go into that chain, just straight into the middle of the V from front to back. And then take the yarn over the hook again, pull through the chain, and now there's 3 on the hook. We're going to take the yarn over again and pull through all 3. So that's why it's like a half double, right? So in a double crochet, you do a yarn over, go through, pull up, and then you'd go through 2 and then 2 again. But here you're going through all 3. So that makes it a little bit smaller of a stitch. And let's go through that again. Yarn over, go into the middle of the chain, yarn over again, pull through the chain. So you have 3, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Some people really love this stitch because it's so kind of rhythmic when you get going, it can go really fast. And if you go too fast, you'll forget your yarn over like I just did. So that's the thing to check yourself if you're speeding through, to make sure that you've got the 3 loops before you finish the stitch. And if you don't have 3 loops, then you did something wrong, like I just did right there. I actually skipped over learning half double crochet when I was learning to crochet. I went straight from single to double. I taught myself, so that could be why. I just missed the fact that half double existed for a while. But I do enjoy it. It's maybe not my favorite, but I think double is still my favorite. But it's a fun variation, something different to try. It's pretty fast when you don't lose your hook like that. There we go. And so we're just going to do that in every stitch of the chain till we get back to our slip knot. Just got a couple more here. Now there is some debate maybe about, not so much with half doubles as with doubles, but the chain that you make at the end to turn into the next row. You can do 1 or 2. I do 2 because that feels closer to the height of the, you can see the chain here is about the same height as the stitches from the previous row, so that's what you're looking for. If you were using a really bulky yarn, you might only want 1, but 2 works for me. So there I got to the end, and you can see I didn't work into the knot there, and then I chained 2 at the end to turn. So when you're done with the first row and you've done your chain, you just flip the crochet project over, and then you can see these V's in the top. We're going to skip our chain and work into this first V here. So again, we're doing a yarn over. We're taking the yarn now under the stitch, through, over, through. Just like that, all the way across. Instead of going in the center of the V like we were before, we're going under both legs of the V. And that's how you do standard crochet stitches. Sometimes you'll go in the front or the back of that stitch, but the vast majority of the time you're just working under both loops of the V. So I'll go ahead and take you back across to the end of this row, but then we're just going to work on this project doing half doubles in every stitch, back and forth across, until our piece is roughly square. It might not be perfect square just because of the height of the stitches, works out, might be a little bit more or less on either side, but the beauty about coasters is that they work even if they're not perfectly sized, or if your edges aren't perfect. Sometimes you end up accidentally working into those chains or skipping a stitch at the end where you shouldn't, and that's just practice of knowing where to stop and where to start. Here we are at the end again, and you can see there's one last V here, so we're going to work into that V, and then we'll chain 2 and turn once again and continue on. You can see how we've already got a good little portion of our coaster worked. This is a very fast project, but you don't need to sit here and watch me do those last rows. So I will meet you back here when we're done with making the square and show you how to finish the project. So here I'm just about to finish up my last row of half double crochets for my coaster. On these, the exact measurement isn't important, so you can kind of just eyeball, oh, that looks square, or you can measure it if you want to. These are about 4.5 inches square, which is about 11.5 centimeters for our metric friends. And I'll show you another trick when I get to the end here. If you don't need an exact measure, one of my favorite ways to do this with square things is to take the bottom corner and just fold it up to the top so that all your edges are matching. And if it makes a right angle triangle, then you know that you've got a square. Again, because of the height of the rows, it might not be perfect, but it's close enough for a coaster. So we're finished with the stitching here, and you'll notice at the end here I did not do a chain 2 because there aren't going to be any more rows, but I'm going to just grab a little bit of the remaining yarn and trim that tail, and then to finish off the last stitch you can just pull on your crochet hook until the yarn comes through, and then you can see that all of those last loops are hooked into that tail. Now the last thing we need to do is what's called weaving in ends, which is where we take the yarn from the beginning and the end and we weave them into the project so that there's not tails hanging, so that everything's nice and secure, so that our project won't unravel when we're done. So to do that, we just take our yarn needle and thread the tail onto the needle, and then we're going to take it down through, don't go through the first loop because then will fall off, but we can go into those other loops along the edge and just pull our thread through, and then maybe we'll go through a couple of stitches here. There's no real magic to like how you exactly weave in ends, how many stitches to go through, what direction, etc. I try to mix it up and go a few different directions, go through several stitches, and just try to bury it as well as I can. And we're going to stop there. And then I like to give it a tug just to make sure that it's secure but at the same tension as the rest of the project. And then we're just going to go ahead and trim the rest of that thread, and then we need to do the same thing with our beginning thread from the start of our chain. So same thing, we're just going to go up the side here a little bit. First you want to make sure you're just going through the one, pulling one strand through, not doubled like that was, just there for a second. We can go up through a few and come back down if we want. Call that good. Again, give it a tug and give it a trim. And then you can see, like, you can't, it's not super obvious where those tails are, but you can also just call that the back, and then you won't see them at all. So you can see that my two turned out slightly different based on using a different yarn, but they still look nice together, and you can do a whole set in a single color. You can do multiple colors. You can do whatever you like with this. And now you know how to do the half double crochet and make these nice, easy coasters for your home, or to give as part of a gift. If you liked this tutorial, please like and subscribe to my channel, and you'll find there also a pattern for the single crochet version and the double crochet version of this same project. So if you want to make a set that has all sorts of different stitch patterns that you've learned, you can do that, or you can just stick with doing a whole set of half double crochet if that's what you'd rather. Thanks so much for watching. Have a crafty day.